Take a break from the season-long commitment and join us for all things daily fantasy sports. DraftKings Daily Drafts, the newest and hottest DFS deals, and all the best ball and DFS content you can handle. All right, let's dive headfirst into this episode.
Welcome to the Fantasyfling DFS channel. I got my boy Jameson here. We are talking about the Thursday Night Football Showdown. It's going to be ugly, but we're going to cover it.
Just a little bit, to say the least. Before then, I guess before I just want to avoid anything talking this game. So I want to bring up, I was going to ask you, did he play any Metcalf last week when we were both on the Cowboys side?
Dude, I couldn't get any Metcalf. I think I put a love on him and the optimizer, and I hardly got any. I got a little, but you needed a lot of him. You at least needed to be even with the field to have any chance because he went crazy. How about you?
I got smoked. I had a whole lot of zero DK Metcalf. Both of us talked about, we played the Dallas. I did not expect that from Seattle, the way that they played. But I guess Abe Lucas coming back on the offensive line, kind of being formidable, that finally got there. So it was a lot more exciting than what we got going here. The Patriots at the Steelers, one of the more uglier games of the season, but we're going to try to take care of this. Try to make the best of it. So looking forward to it as always.
To your point, this year, this has been the craziest year I can ever remember. I think injuries have a lot to do with it, but there's been so many times where it's you can watch all the games and look at all the numbers and study all the offseason moves, and it doesn't really matter because just the unthinkable seems to happen way more this year than it has in years past. Just look at Monday night. How did that happen? How did that end up in a shootout?
Just doesn't make any sense. Especially with Geno Smith, the whole entire year he played Detroit and they went into a shootout. Outside of that, he's wasn't averaging even 15 fantasy points, and then he goes up against the Dallas defense and ends up getting in a shootout with them. It just, a lot of it defies logic and doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And to your point, Jake Browning, AFC Player of the Week, the backup quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals, going off against the Jaguars. None of it makes any sense at this point, but we're just going to roll with the punches.
Exactly. And, my thing is if you want to play the opposite of what you think the game is going to do, then play that way. It's probably going to pay off once a year for sure. Just being so contrarian, specifically on these showdowns. I would say, my strategy is to just kind of hedge a little bit. I'm going to play it, kind of one way. And then I think I'm going to just throw out, 5 to 7, 8, 10 lineups in single entry, playing it the opposite way, because you could really leverage the field that way. But that said, Jameson, all that said, we are still going to probably play this game to be ugly because, how could it not be, right? We have Zappy maybe play the whole game. It might be Mac Jones. Either way, it's been terrible. The Steelers have Trubisky. It's just, I don't know. It's really nuts.
It's hard to wrap your head around. Talk about playing the opposite. If you want to play this game opposite, play quarterbacks and pass catchers. That's the game total for Vegas. It's 30. So, we're looking at 15-15 type of game. That's how low it is. The Patriots defense, one of the best defenses in the league. The last 3 games, they've held opponents to under 10 points, and they are 0-3 in each of those games just because the offense has been so bad. But one of the best run defenses in the league. Seems like Najee Harris, he hasn't practiced this week. He will definitely be a game time decision. And then if that's the case, I think a lot of people are going to lean to Jaylen Warren, not knowing the fact that the Patriots defense has been really good against the run. So just kind of a way to look that way. Obviously, Ramondre Stevenson's going to be out for the Patriots side. And then we talked about the quarterbacks, both backups in, and I wouldn't be surprised to see their backups in. That's how bad it is.
Yeah. I hope I hope we get Najee out. Or maybe, I don't know. Maybe if Najee plays, that's maybe when you might want to play Warren a little bit, just because he's just looked so much better. I mean, he had almost the same yards last week, with 7 fewer carries than Najee did. And I get it's a tough defense. But I think, potential for dump offs, over on DraftKings, that can help. And on the other side, we got no Stevenson. I'm loving Zeke this week. So
he will be my main captain across the board. So before we even get into that, it seems like we're on the same page there. I think he's a guaranteed 20 touches. They paid him this past offseason. And behind him, they got like Ty Montgomery. I think they're just gonna make it the Zeke show for better or for worse.
Speaking of Stevenson, I had like 58% Stevenson on the main slate. Just absolutely crushed me this past week. And I had about 30% Tank Dell. So
yeah,
no need to really go into how my Sunday went with Stevenson and Dell. That much exposure. But we're gonna get into captain real quick. Let's just start with the game totals. As you mentioned, it's a low one, only 30 points. Pittsburgh, the home team, they are favorites. Of course, they're 6-point favorites. I'm not sure they should be 6-point favorites though. So I don't know. If there's a contrarian take, I could see New England winning this game just off of the legs of Zeke and just strong defense. So we'll see how this goes. But that is what the spread is for the game. And any initial thoughts as you get into your captains, and I will let you go with your captain plays for this.
Yeah, like we just brought up, I really like Zeke in this spot. I think he is the biggest guarantee for workload, even if Jalen Warren is by himself on the other side. We talked about them going up against the Patriots defense, who is really good against the run. So I like Zeke, even if he's a little older. I mean, especially on DraftKings, you brought up the dump offs. And, in a low scoring game, you're obviously looking to find who ends up getting the touchdown. Obviously, if they get in the goal line, get in the red zone, they get on like the 1 yard line, Zeke would be the one to pound that in. So I like him. I always like pairing running backs with defenses. I think both defenses are viable. I would actually lean the Patriots here. I do think that people will play the Steelers more just because of how bad the Patriots offense has been. And I get that, but I mean, the Patriots stat wise are just a better defense. And I mean, they've shut down a lot better offenses. They just shut down Justin Herbert. I know that team is hurt overall, but I mean, they got a better quarterback and better weapons than the Steelers do. So I think that'd be a little bit way to get contrarian. Both quarterbacks, obviously. I don't think I'd play him in the captain, but I will say the Patriots the last couple of weeks have flip-flop quarterbacks. If you get Mac Jones for a half and he throws a touchdown, that could be like the thing that makes it happen. As weird, like just how low that is. I know that's a very off-the-wall take, but, if you want to get off the wall, playing a little bit of Mac Jones, I don't hate you there for it. And the only one I'm honestly really interested in is Deontay Johnson. Just if he gets, let's say, 10 targets. We've seen him kind of be a reception hog. That's really about it. As far as the captains go outside of defense and kicker.
Yeah, I like it for, large field GPPs like the Millie Maker for sure, playing the backup quarterback. I do that often, like specifically if a guy is coming into the game with an injury, I like not even so much the quarterback, but the backup running back. I'll always throw one in just because there's no better way to leverage the field than a couple lineups with the backup running back, especially if it's like a hamstring or like an ankle, you know what I mean?
Right. And I should have specified that, especially if you're playing like small field stuff or single entry, you probably shouldn't be playing Mac Jones. But if you're playing large field and there's not a whole lot of ways to get different, I think that would be the way to get different there. And on the other side, I mean, Mitchell Trubisky looked really bad last week. I would not be surprised if it got so bad that Mason Rudolph came in. He kind of showed a little bit of juice when Ben Roethlisberger was around, and he's just kind of been a Steeler for a long time, knows the offense, that sort of thing. So those would be two large field ways to get different on a game that's really hard to get different if you're going to play it the one way that everybody is.
For sure. I like that. And like I said, we do all this analysis and, we watch the games and you look at the numbers and, you look at the lines and you're like, well, this is the way the game should go. And yet it continually goes the other way. So don't be afraid to take a hard stance and play it the other way. That's how you win these GPPs for sure. I like you. I like what you said with Ezekiel Elliott. I'm with you on that. He's my favorite captain play by far. He looks great last week. And he got the volume. So he got 5 targets last week in Stevenson's absence. And keep in mind, this wasn't even a full game. Got 5 targets, 17 carries. So, he got over 22 touches last week. And they know that we have Bailey Zappi. So, and they're banged up at wide receiver. Like they're without Demario Douglas, Kayshawn, is it Booty? I don't know how to say it, but yeah.
So Devontae's questionable. Juju Smith-Schuster is questionable. So, I mean, like the whole offensive core is just like a bunch of maybes.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the way you win this game is you run the ball and it runs through Zeke. So he's my favorite captain. Now, this week I'm going to probably have a few captains. It's not a lot, but a few. Zeke is going to be the guy I'll be most over the field on. And I'm going to have both defenses in the captain spot here. I think it's a really good spot for defenses. I will get a little bit of both kickers in the captain, specifically Boswell, because he's had a lot of games over 12 points. And who knows, on a slate like this, 12 times 1.5, that might be enough on this slate to be, the captain. So, I'll probably be a little bit over the field on Boswell.
That's how bad it's been. And, especially if you want to think about it, the Steelers just got embarrassed last week by the Cardinals, a 2-win team that they probably should have beat. I know Kenny Pickett was hurt, but, even then, we've kind of seen the letdown game from the Steelers and, obviously Mike Tomlin, and then they kind of bounce back. I wouldn't be surprised if the Steelers kind of throttle the Patriots just because they can't get there scoring wise. Yeah. But like you said, there's just not a whole lot of points to be spared here. So that's really, honestly, if you want to take a dart throw on George Pickens, let's say if he catches one long touchdown, kind of breaks one, and that could honestly be the difference in a 30-point game total. I don't hate you there, but there's really nothing else that I feel comfortable playing at the captain.
Yeah, unless we do get Najee out of this game, who's questionable with a knee injury, I think I would take some shots with Jaylen Warren at captain, just having the whole backfield to himself. And, he's looked really good at times this year. I know we say this, it's a tough matchup and this and that, but oftentimes the matchups don't really matter. Mixon had a terrible matchup the other night, and look what he did. So
had the game of his life.
Yeah, I know. That's what he does. I think we talked about this like last week, or 2 weeks ago. It was like, Mixon, he's going to disappoint, and then he's going to drop 40. That's just what he does.
Yeah. And then ends up making him like a top 10 running back on the league because his 40 averages out with all the bad games to where he just kind of sneaks in there. So, but
it's like the Broncos, by every metric, they have a terrible defense because of the 70 points that they gave up to Miami Dolphins. But if you take that 70 out, pretty good defense, actually.
They've been shutting everybody. They shut down Patrick Mahomes, CJ Stroud this past week, even though they lost. But, I get it. And especially when you talk about on DraftKings, if Jaylen Warren's by himself, he gets the dump off stuff, that ends up adding up a long way, even if the yards don't get there.
Yeah, it could be like a cheat code for sure.
I guess we can move on to the flex. I don't really have any other captains unless you do.
No, I keep my captain pool pretty tight. I think, I'm gonna let the domination station kind of do what it does for the most part. I might get a decent amount of exposure to some of these players, but as far as the guys I'm going to be, because I'm going to play probably 150. The guys I'm going to be, I feel like this is a perfect slate to play 150 because it's going to be so ugly. It can go so many different ways. So I kind of want to, spread out exposures to some of these guys. And yeah, if the domination station wants to run some of these other guys, like maybe a Deontay and the captain, maybe a Devontae Parker, Fryermuth, Hunter Henry, a couple of these guys that you wouldn't necessarily be on a slate like this. Yeah, ugly slate. I'm willing to give it a little bit more chance. So,
yeah, especially with the game that there's enough options, but it's like kind of condensed, so you can kind of cover all your bases to where
yeah.
more than likely you can kind of hit the lineup to where if you're playing in a shootout lineup where you got a bunch of different options, like say Washington, they got like 5 wide receivers that can get there any given week.
Yeah.
Just makes it a little hard to cover all of them in 150. But a game like this, I mean, it'd be really hard not to get close at least, if not have a takedown.
Yeah, well, especially if you have, if this is a game that is as low scoring as projected, and it's kind of like field goals and, special teams, touchdowns, it could be like one guy that scores a touchdown on offense, that got a good amount of volume, So,
right. So we'll get into the flex spots, which is really not a whole lot between them and the dart throws. They kind of mix together, but flex for me is obviously the people that we talked about: kickers, defenses, George Pickens, Pat Fryermuth, and then Hunter Henry, and then we will see about the New England wide receivers. But looking at them, they've been really bad. Like none of them have gotten there. The ones that did, Demario Douglas, and the other one that's escaping me that tore his ACL and that's out for the year. Those have been the only two that have had some production. So other than that, Ty Montgomery, the backup to Zeke, in case something happens to Zeke or if they want to split some time, that would be my flex option. That's really about it as far as flex option goes.
Yeah, I was looking at that. None of these other running backs got run last week besides Zeke, Warren, and Najee. When Stevenson went down, like they didn't split carries. It was just all the Zeke show last week. So, yeah. But yeah, in the flex, definitely.
I will say this, looking at the Patriots wide receivers, like guy like Juju Smith-Schuster, he's only averaged like 15 yards a game. I mean, he has been putrid, but I think people have the idea that he's like the wide receiver 1 or 2. Devontae Parker hasn't gotten there. Hunter Henry started off the year hot, and he has like gone ice cold. Mike Gesicki is a big name, obviously, from Miami, but I mean, he played like 7 snaps last week. I mean, he wasn't even on the field for the 60-something that they ran. That's how bad it's gotten for the Patriots offense.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, last week it was basically, and the reason I look at last week the most is because they have so many injuries. So I'm like, well, what did they do last week when, Demario Douglas wasn't in the game? And it was really just Parker and Henry. Like they got the majority of the targets, and Juju got a few, but Parker got 9 targets last week. I think he caught 4, maybe 5, probably 4, but the targets were there. So other than that, it's been kind of a mess.
It's been Patriots offense just been horrible. So I can see a scenario where a lot of people play like all Steelers and then pick, Patriots defense to kind of, do it that way. It just really hard for me to say. They're more dart throws, like the Patriots wide receivers are more dart throws than they are flex options for me. That just, unless you're going to have one that catches a touchdown, I mean, they've all just been that bad.
I agree. And, it's probably a slate where, we're not playing 2 quarterbacks. I'm not even going to be forcing the quarterback into lineups. Like, honestly, if the optimizer gives me some double tight end, double kicker, and, running back and a wide receiver, like I'm totally fine with that this week.
Yeah, I just don't feel comfortable with any of these guys. That's just kind of going back to it, just how ugly this game is. And the only, honestly, dart throw for me, I'll just kind of mix it in here just because there's not a whole lot to it. Juju, and then Mike Gesicki, just in case he ends up in a red zone package. And then backup tight end Darnell Washington. He is mostly on the offensive line, but I could see a scenario they have like a red zone package for him. I mean, he's like a behemoth. He's like 6'8". He is just he should be an offensive lineman, but he's listed as a tight end. had a touchdown earlier this year, but he doesn't get much catching work. He's usually in blocking, but just in case, just a dart throw there.
I like it. Is that it for you on the flex?
I think so. Tyquan Thornton, that's about it. That's about it.
Yeah, now Tyquan Thornton is the home run guy for sure. He had one last week. He dropped, would have been a nice touchdown. So he's the guy I think you want to get some exposure to, just that home run ability to on this slate. You know, he gets a target like that and he catches it. He's going to end up being in the winning lineup. He's only 3,400. So yeah, I think you want to get some Tyquan Thornton. I'll have a little bit of Trubisky and Zappy in the flex. I don't think I'm going to have both of them together. I'm not sure, but I might even set a rule where I just have one quarterback. Just the way I see this game going. One quarterback in the flex. I certainly wouldn't do both of them, and I'm probably not going to have either of them at captain. But I like at running back. If Najee plays, I would have some exposure to both Najee and Jalen because I think one of them, could potentially bust one and, end up in the winning lineup, take one to the house. If Najee's out there, I really like Jalen Warren, and he's even given the matchup probably will be a lock button for me. And then Zeke. So, specifically if Najee's out, totally fine with having a lot of double running back lineups. Check downs, runs. I just think both of these guys can get there.
I was going to say, if Najee plays, playing Najee, Warren, and Zeke, and then you can do whatever you want with kicker and defense, I think that's a way to get there too. If Najee's in there, I do not hate, with them splitting time, both of them in the same lineup, I almost think would be kind of optimal with how bad things are.
Exactly. You got the Patriots, for example, they're on their wide receiver 1 is technically wide receiver 3 or 4 on the season.
Yeah, 4 at this rate.
Yeah, Kendrick Bourne being out, Demario Douglas out, Kayshawn out. So, they've got a lot of injuries. And yeah, some of these guys might not even play. So, at wide receiver on the New England side, the guy that I'm really getting to the most will be Parker. And then, just a little bit of Juju and a little bit of Tyquan Thornton, but it's mainly going to be Parker just on the volume that he has gotten the past couple weeks. I believe he got 5 targets 2 weeks ago. And then last week with Douglas out, he got 9. So I like him in the flex on the, Pittsburgh side. I almost forgot Allen Robinson was still in the league and also on the Steelers.
Yep.
When I looked that up earlier, I was like, oh my gosh, he's actually, I was on PFF and I was looking at snap counts and I'm like, he's on the field a lot, but yeah, he's only getting a few targets a game. So that was kind of crazy. But yeah, Pickens and obviously Deontay Johnson, I think those are the guys that going to have a good amount of volume in the flex at the wide receiver position.
I think the last person that I didn't bring up was Calvin Austin.
Yeah.
He gets one target, but if he gets a target, it ends up being a touchdown. We've talked about. The only thing, I think I'm kind of done with all the players. I will say if you want to play something a little contrarian, playing Trubisky and the pass catchers, I don't think it's going to get played a whole lot. So Patriots have been susceptible through the pass this year. Just say if Trubisky has a 200-yard game, throws for 2 touchdowns, and ends up being Deontay and Freiermuth or Pickens and Freiermuth, I don't think that's going to get played a whole ton. I think a lot of people are going to be focusing, like we said, on running backs and defense.
Definitely. And, I will have both of the tight ends. I will have a good amount of exposure to them, both Hunter Henry and Pat Freiermuth. Let's not forget what Freiermuth did a couple years ago or not a couple years ago, a couple games ago. Yeah. Whatever.
And a couple of years, technically.
Yeah. Where I was going with that is this year, I mix up games and year. This year, we got all the rookies that are, kind of still in the show, the Laportas and the Kincaids. But Fryermuth's been a good young tight end, and he showed it a couple games a couple weeks ago. And yeah, I like him in this game too. So I think both Hunter Henry and Fryermuth, I'll have a good amount of exposure to both of these guys.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. Is there any other plays that you've got that we haven't covered or gone over?
Just the kickers and the defenses, like we were talking about. This is definitely a double kicker, double defense kind of slate for me. I know you feel the same way. Boswell has been a lot better than Ryland on the year. I think he's got like 97 fantasy points on the year. He's got 5 games over 12 points. So, they're both in play, but I think I'll definitely have more exposure to Boswell than Ryland. And then, yeah, like you said, the Steelers D and the Patriots D, they're both really good defenses. The Steelers have actually scored a lot more points, fantasy points. So I'll kind of have, I'll be the same there. I'll have a good amount of exposure to them, be quite over the field, but also like the Patriots as well. So like I said, double defense.
There we go. It's just, I don't know. I think we did our best, but it's ugly out there this week. There's no getting wet. There's no getting around it.
Yeah, that'll be my final thoughts. It's going to be an ugly game. That's the way I'm going to play it, to be ugly. But, don't be afraid to take hard stands because as we've seen this year, those contrarian hard stands, they've paid off more times than not.
Yep. And I think we're both in agreement that Zeke is our main man for, I think, this showdown. I'm very interested. I haven't seen any ownership yet. I'm interested to see how much he'll be in the captain spot.
Yeah, we don't have ownership numbers yet over at DFS Army, but normally by Thursday morning, those are ready to rip. So it's going to be interesting to see. So, and of course, they'll adjust once we get the news for Najee and, some of these other guys that are questionable as well.
Right. So just keep an eye out on that stuff, especially these Patriots wide receivers. There's a couple of them that you probably won't find until 90 minutes before kickoff.
Absolutely. And, if you want these ownership projections, you want the projections, the optimizer, all these tools, seeing the best fantasy points per dollar plays, go over to dfsarmy.com, use code FantasyFling. It'll get you 10% off a VIP subscription. So, Jameson, I think that's going to wrap it up. Do you have any last thoughts? Any last words? Where can they find you this week? All those things.
Over on the Twitter machine at Jameson Rules. Obviously got the DFS show on Sundays at FF Face Off. But other than that, my thoughts and prayers go out to everybody who is playing this slate. If you go Christmas shopping or go on a date with your wife or go hang out with your kid, I don't blame you. But if you decide to play this slate, hope you win some money. And we'll talk to you guys all next week.
Same. It's the slates that we feel good about that always end up being the worst. So sometimes it's the ugly slates that you can win the monies. So
hopefully it's the case this week. But like I said, we're going to have to go through hell to get to heaven this week.
I love it. Well, hopefully we will see you atop the leaderboards. But yeah, stay tuned to the channel for more content, daily drafts, and all the DFS content, of course, you can handle. And we'll see you next week. Thank you all for joining us. Take care.
Guys, have a good one.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to smash that like button and subscribe. You don't want to miss what's coming next. We really appreciate it. And we'll catch you in the next episode right here on the Fantasy Fling DFS